I need to give you a background of myself. So, um, I was born in an era in Nigeria where I think they used to call it double promotions. And so I skipped a couple of classes in primary school, secondary school. Essentially, I ended up graduating university at 19 years old, which ended up meaning that I was mostly the youngest in anything I found myself in the workforce. And I also studied computer science as my background. Since then, I have gained a lot of other degrees, but I want to explain to you what it means to develop an executive presence. So imagine starting the workforce at barely 20. I think I was barely 20 or timely 20 when I started working. And my first job then was working as a customer service operator in a bank, as part of the National Youth Corps Service. And I quickly learned that in the workplace, I mean, there's a dynamism of almost high school where people try to bully you. They're almost testing to see what substance does this person have. And so starting work early for me was it opened me up to learn a lot of things. And firstly, I'll explain what it means. So after Zenith Bank, I went into a consulting firm called KPMG. Has anyone ever heard of the big four consulting firms and how crazy it gets there with their routines? And I was working as a forensic technology expert. Now, when I started that role, I came in with a chip on my shoulder because I had just graduated from university. I got a first class degree in computer science, and I felt like the world should revolve around me. But when you enter a big four organization, you quickly realize that every other person almost got a first class, or even if there was anything higher than that, we're really good at a field. So what was your differentiating factor? And so in my first year, it was a very humbling experience, I will tell you so. I met extremely smart people, right? And these were people that finished from the best universities in Nigeria, in the UK, as my colleagues. And I began to feel less of myself. I began to lose my identity. I didn't realize that I came here with substance there, and I was not even near anything in an executive role. Now, my first evaluation came out that year, and they told me that, oh, you need improvements. Now, for someone who had never failed in her life, and I was always used to being in the top, that was an icebreaker for me. It almost made me question my existence and what I stand from. And I think that was the beginning of me understanding what type of career I wanted to be, what type of person I wanted to be, and what kind of individual I would aspire to be. So that was my first worst feedback. And there might be some of you here in your organizations, they're telling you, oh, you're not good enough as this, you're not good. They gave me a terrible feedback. You really don't understand what it means to for someone who has always been a people pleaser or always been top to get the worst rating ever in an organization in your first year of working. Now that was the beginning of the learning I said. I had to start learning a new skill. How do I build an identity that is so strong that people's opinions will not break me? Because when they gave me that feedback, honestly, it broke me. I went back to work the next day and I was seeing my colleagues saying, oh, I got an excellent, oh, I was the top of it. And Uyoyo, what do you get? I couldn't even open my mouth to say it. But I realized quickly that, see, in an organization like KPMG, right? Or please don't, let's keep this as a family meeting. In an organization, in any consulting organization, one of their strengths is giving you feedback constantly. Oh, your hair is an afro, okay, you need improvement. All this. So people were so used to giving feedback for the purpose of improvement, or also they thought that they did not understand where to set boundaries. And if you didn't have an identity for yourself, you would almost become, by the end of 5 years in consulting, you will become something you don't even recognize. And so in my first year, like I said, I sat myself down and I said, I am not this kind of person. I was getting all the negative feedback, just soaking it in. And it was destroying my personality. And I said, no, I refused to accept this messaging about myself. And so I began something. I began talking to myself, not literally talking to yourself as if you're crazy. Come on. I mean, I began speaking up to myself. And I think as God will have it, or as faith will have it, there was a training that happened, and it was on time management and communication. But then the trainer said, see, write a letter to yourself 1 year's time and tell yourself what you will be and congratulate yourself for the milestone. It was a very random thing, but I wrote a letter to myself and they'll post it to you 1 year time. I said, Uyoyo, well done for believing in yourself. Well done for not accepting people's feedback on you about you. Well done for taking this feedback and building a solid personality that is untouchable, that is unquestionable. Well done for building an identity so strong that you've defined your boundaries and people respect the values you've built. Something along that line. I can't really remember right now. It's almost 13 years ago, right? And so I wrote this to myself. Mind you, I was still the worst in my day. I was still the worst performing analyst, like they'll put it then. And I started working on myself. I refuse to believe that mindset. Every day I go to work, I'm like, I'm the best. I am the best in this. And then I started giving my all. So it was one thing. I refused to wear the rating as my identity. I chose number two to show up as my best self. And number three, I said that whatever learning I needed to become that to become the best in my field, I will become that. So on the sideline, what I started doing was I started studying a lot. I started looking up to colleagues that were doing better at me, and I'll sit them down. So what do you think I should do here? And what do you think I should do here? And I came across this situation. I started studying the psychology of my leaders because you really need to understand the kind of leaders you work with, how to present, what they want, what is your tone on that organization. And I started delivering. In fact, I tasked myself to over deliver. Like to me, excellence was not an option. Excellence was an expectation because I didn't want to go back to where I was. I mean, it pushed me so hard that I worked so hard. I mean, I went to work, and some days I will go to work not thinking, okay, when do I come back? It's whatever has to be done. And it was very interesting because I'll come to this mindset, this excellence mindset. My peers still saw my rating of before, but I had seen a new Uyoyo that was developing. So the more I developed myself, the more confident I became. The more I started understanding the psychologies of the leaders I was working with, the more I could deliver value that was adapted to their thinking, right? And then when I understood the way they think, I started realizing the flaws in their thinking. So I got to a point where when I'm called for meetings and they say, Yo, what do you think about this? I'll say, hey, excuse me, I'll tell my manager, I said, you will think this way because I work with you and I understand, but I'm going to tell you the problem with your thinking pattern. It's going to result into this error. And when that error comes into play, don't question me because I have brought both sides of the table. So I became different, right? I could preempt people. And I didn't know what I was doing was developing a psychology of workplace. So when people come with me with a problem, I come with them with two solutions. The solutions they would like because of their kind of personality and the solution that I think is optimal. And so the more people in my organization, except especially my managers, especially my team, started saying that excellent, the more the affirmation of who I was. Again, remind you, I was talking to myself daily. The more I built my skills and applied them, the more confident I was. And it's very important because many of you are in organizations right now, and the tendency when you get a bad rating or something is not going as you want, you tend to start sulking. Oh my God, they don't like me. Or you tend to take an approach where you now start over warming up to people so you can be liked. Now you need to remember something. When you get to an organization, you're there to work first. And then when you're giving the solution for failure, a failed or a bad report is not really overcompensating in social skills. You understand? It's building qualities and values that align with your organization so good that they cannot deal with you. They cannot work without you rather. And so after my first year, I got this rating that wow, you were one of the best performing. And I told them, yeah, I knew I was the best performing. I mean, you guys, your accolades or your non-accolades did not move me. Now, the second year, when I had worked on my mastery of my job, so take notes, I worked on the mastery, understanding of the culture where I dealt with. If you work in an organization where you know they don't come late, or everybody's at work by 7, you can't start day one where you have not even brought anything to the table and then say, okay, I'm like this. I was born this way. I'm gonna start whatever time I want. You will always get to a stage where you can start negotiating with your identity, right? But not at the beginning, because what people are trying to assess is what value do you bring to this table, and is it worth it for us to trade some things or to be flexible enough to trade in some of our uptight culture for your value just because you bring quality to the team. So in my first year, I had overcome that. I overcame the bad reports by working really extra hard, understanding the psychology of the organization I worked in, and bringing solutions, not questions. So when you come with me with the problem, I come with you with solutions, and then we work from the solutions backwards. And I think that, like for us, that I think this is a tech-based background, right? In my time, technology was a lot different. If you did not have Stack Overflow, I think Stack Overflow was the closest thing to anything programming. I mean, debugging any programming errors that we had then. So you had to walk your way through. You literally had to read those codes. You literally had to spend hours and hours um, reconfiguring it. But now you have ChatGPT, you have tools, you have the internet, you have LinkedIn where you could reach out to mentors. I didn't have that in my time. So I think that in this time more than ever before, you are set up for success. Please remember the 3 things I told you at the level of starting. Always have an identity for yourself. You might not believe it at first, but do not internalize bad feedback for yourself. Do not compensate a bad report with sulking up to people such that you lose your identity. I've seen people that when they get a bad report, instead of them working on their values, then what you see them doing is, oh, my boss is having his child's birthday party, so I'm going. Oh, boss, can I buy food for you? So you buy it. Do you know what you're setting yourself up for? You're telling yourself that you are not technically or mentally competent to be in that organization. So the only thing you can bring is social skills that are akin to an administrative staff. Don't do that to yourself because the tone you set for yourself is what people will identify you as. So if you describe yourself as laid down, as sulky, as the only thing I can do, I can't bring any value. The best thing I can do is buy coffee. You will be that. I'm not saying that when they give you those roles, you should puff and scoff about it. I'm just saying that the branding and identity of yourself needs to be consistent. Now, so in my second year, what did I do? I had become quite good at what I do, my job. Now I started negotiating because I knew that I brought in value that my teammates did not bring in. And so that was the first time I started negotiating things, right? My organization, they loved people coming in early. When you had no work, you had to pretend like you're working. And I started negotiating things with my boss. So, I've delivered excellent work this week. I would like to do this. I would like to come into work a bit later so that I can refresh my mind and I can be able to provide value. And I got that benefit. I can remember sometimes I'm coming in a bit later and then I see young associates being one and they're looking at me, but Uyoyo comes in a bit later. But I was like, you don't know the value I have deposited. You don't know the excellence I give to this work. You don't know the tours I do at 9. So you cannot compare. What am I trying to say? You cannot compare your pathways to your colleagues. And then what the next thing I started doing is before I was internalizing my identities, I then started, instead of internalizing it, I then
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, I think she'll soon be back. Good
Yeah,
evening.
sorry guys.
Okay, she's back.
And today is Saturday, so I'm a mother of two kids, and kids don't understand webinars and boundaries, so joy. And so yeah, what did I stop? So I was about saying in my second year, the next thing I started doing was being more vocal about my values. And you need to do this. You need to speak for yourself. So when I go to meetings, before now, I would be internalizing, oh yes, and when they ask me to do something, I'm like, I deliver quality and I bring value to this organization. Therefore, I'm going to need about 1 or 2 days to deliver this. I started negotiating. I was very vocal about my identity, about the value I give. I was like, whatever I bring is innovative in this organization. People used to laugh about it, right? Uyoyo, you've come again. But you need to be vocal. So the first year you be it. Your second year, when you're already your values, you start speaking about it, right? Publicly to people. So you've internalized it. You started displaying it. And next thing you're speaking your values. Because nobody will give you you are as good as you market yourself. The flowers you want in life, you need to grow them up. And it's very important. You need to grow the flowers in your backyard. I had a colleague who would resume work and say, hello, it's me. I'm very awesome. I'm very awesome at what I'm doing. I'm the best. Everybody used to look at that guy as if he was crazy and pompous. But I was in a meeting one day and someone was talking about him and they were like, yeah, that guy, let's call him AJ. AJ is the best at what he does and he's really innovative. And I looked at it like this guy's not even doing anything like so important, but he had created a narrative of himself and he had resounded his values so much that people started identifying him as his values. It's very important you realize that the flowers you want. In an ideal organization, we expect recognition. You expect people to sing your praises, but it would not happen, except all things are equal. It would not usually happen as it's meant to be. So this was my second year of career. And then in my second year, I started thinking, okay, now I'm a bit technically sound. What are the things that I need to build more to differentiate myself? Like I think I am missing something here. I'm not sure what I'm missing, but I think I'm missing something. And then I added a skill again. So I think in that second year, um in my field, I decided that I should go and do a master's. I decided so, right? I had it in my heart. I laid it in my heart. I had no money actually to do the master's, to be honest with you. And this is where the second level of, belief comes in. So it's one thing to believe in yourself. It's one thing to believe in your identity. It's one thing to be vocal about it. As you're vocal about it in your organization, you need to also be exploring opportunities for growth. Life is a life of lifelong learning. Except you're dead, that's the time you stop learning. So the mentality of I finished school, I finished BSc, I finished MSc, I'm done is just keep it as 1986 when the workforce was really small. Right now, it's more competitive than ever, and our time job roles are changing every time. So you really need to start thinking about how can I socially, work-wise, in my life skills, in my soft skills, and my technical skills. How am I doing? How can I improve myself? Can I get a mentor? Can I get, courses online? What can I do at every stage according to your level? And so in my second year, I was at the level where I realized that, okay, I think I need to leave this organization and I need to get my master's degree, right? And this is where I always tell people, like, life is not black and white. Some people were born with a silver spoon, I wasn't, right? And I think when you have a belief in yourself and you have faith, right? Then I believe in the fact that there is a God and God listens to people and He listens to you. But if you have no ambition and you're lazy and you don't even have a good attitude towards life, and if you choose by default to see yourself as the victim, your career will be set up against you. So what happened? The year I desired to go to the master's, the Delta State government miraculously announced that everybody that graduated with a first class scholarship, the first class in any field, will be getting a fully paid scholarship to study in any university of their choice, and we're giving them an amount of 5 million cash to go there. I thought it was a dream. Now you see the element of faith here. Ask any great person. Go to Oprah, go to Tesla. Oprah said something. Show me your spiritual routine and I'll tell you the type of leader you'll become. Because see, life will test you. Your organizations will test you. There are heights you would want to gain that will test you. And there's only a level of faith that you have to bring into your work. So like that, I got into the UK. And before I left, as a person of faith as well, I said to God, um, I said many people go to the UK to study and then they come back the same. I don't want to go as other people have gone. I want to go and I want to really be the best and get a job. Now, it seems crazy, right? Again, I went to the UK and with the same spirit I learned. When I got into school, I was together with very advanced kids. I mean, I studied computer science and computer science in Nigeria and computer science in the UK. I don't think they're the same thing. Or like, I would go back to my room and I would cry for days about how I did not know Java as well as my classmates and how half of my classes were Greek, right? And I'll cry about it, but it's the same principles I adapted. I was like, these people have there are no mountains in life. The only mountains or the only disadvantage anyone has is ignorance. If I work on my knowledge gap and I work fast enough, I will be able to catch up and I will be able to overtake my classmates. Now, so what did I start doing? In the morning when I wake up, where people are just eating and lazing around, I was watching YouTube videos on Java programming. I was watching the afternoons, I was watching in my nights, I was watching. Again, you have to double up. There is a demand for excellence. There is a price to pay for anything that you want to be. And so I was watching these Java videos. I was watching, I was adapting. In fact, I pushed myself to join, they called it the PySoc Society, the programming society of the school. I did not even know any. My programming levels were terrible at that point. But every morning, every evening, every afternoon, every spare time I had, I was on these YouTube videos learning. Now, first semester, I came out great. Second semester, the school was going for a hackathon and they called, okay, we need 4 people that were the best in UK. And we're going with Uyoyo and 4 boys. How did I go from that Nigerian student that came barely knowing anything to representing a whole school? They took all expense paid to London and we were there for 3 days. How? But again, I want to tell you guys, right? One thing that I always see in young people is this victim mentality. Don't accept it. See, look at everything as a challenge. Look at everything as a learning gap. Look at anything as a learning gap and build your skills to such a way that you are so valuable. People might not be nice to you. Please don't internalize it. Please don't internalize people's feedback. That is why your messaging about yourself should never change. The morning when I wake up, I talk to myself. I know who I am. I know who I am. I might not be there yet, but give me time. What you know, the difference between me and other person is not color of skin, is not advantage, is knowledge. When I gain that knowledge and I gain mastery of that knowledge, I will be better. And then when you keep saying that to yourself, you need to be intentional about what you say to others about yourself. And then you need to put in work. So you see the 3 things. And above all, you need to put in faith, right? Because life is not white and black, and I'll come to that. And so I represented the school. I ended up graduating as the best graduate, and I think I had the highest GPA in my school in Bradford, and it was all good from there. Immediately, what I did was I packaged my CV from Nigeria. I packaged my CV very well. Now, that's the next thing you need to learn. You need to learn to articulate your experiences. I see a lot of people, a lot of young people undermining seriously valuable experience. I mean, In your day-to-day work, you've built systems, debug programs, solved problems, and you're still looking down on yourself. You don't understand the value you are done, you're producing. So I sat down with myself and I repackaged my CV. And I said, I'm not going to do any jobs, any menial jobs like McDonald's. And my colleagues, my classmates then were taking up jobs in like very administrative type of job. I refused to do that. I packaged my CV and my experiences and I started applying to big companies from the get-go. And I got my first job. In fact, they invited me for my first job interview. It was an all white British firm, not just even British. They were all Northern England and they had all known themselves since they were children. So it was almost like a closed family organization. I was not only coming as the first Black person they would have, the first Black female, and the first Black only female programmer in a very technical role. The only women they had in that company, even though they were white, were doing administrative work and sales and marketing. So you can imagine how it was almost as though I was breaking into what do they call it when there's a title, a fraternity or something like that. And so they had never seen that in their life, right? They had never seen a person of an African descent. And then it was not like so common to have a lot of Nigerians in the UK working in IT then. This was about 2012, where we didn't even have post-study any longer. So you couldn't even find. And then in tech, I mean, Nigeria was still developing its ecosystem then. So I came into the organization, and the first thing I experienced was racism. Yeah. This one was the most interesting thing, like, and so I realized that the first day I came, they did the same thing as in any organization, try to test you, try to understand what you bring to the table, try to push you to the boundary. Can you develop this program in a few days? Can you get us this in 5 hours? Can you do this? And because I had built a skill of resilience, excellence, and not even internalizing things, you ask me for something, you get it. I don't care if after that you don't invite me for your child's naming ceremony. I used to joke to them. I said, see, guys, we are 200 million in Nigeria. I'm not looking for one more friend. I'm just trying to get away from people right now. And they laughed about it, right? But it was true. There are 200 million people, and I was not looking for acceptance. I was looking for work. And now you guys need to understand. They say work is your family, but it's not all. I mean, some of you are blessed with organizations that work, but work is there because you are there to work first. And then family thing is after, so that everybody can just work. But if you understand that you are there to work and understand that nobody really owes you anything but to get paid after work, then you understand that you need to work. And so I didn't care if they didn't invite me for children. They'll come on Monday and say how they had a great weekend and how every one of them went for some sort of event. And I realized I wasn't invited. But that didn't move me. In fact, there was even a scenario. I like giving stories, guys. And sorry again. I said I had slides for this, but I couldn't find them. But I'll send them all. They're all in my executive leadership training slides. So you'll see a lot of these things I'm saying. Right. And what happened was in that organization, they tried that with me for 4 weeks. In fact, there was a certain colleague that he would come and say, hey, everyone, do you want a cup of coffee? And he would get coffee for everyone. And all the white people, and he will come to my table and he will pass me. And he will get a coffee for every other person. And they would all be happy. And I noticed this happened for 2 weeks. But then I told you, I don't internalize things. And then when I realized, the first thing I started doing was, first, I didn't internalize it because one person's bad behavior would not generalize the whole character. I mean, if they were to generalize it, then everybody in Nigeria is a 4-1, and every one of us are kidnappers, every one of us are ritualists, every one of us are what, musicians too, or something like that. Do you see? Do you see why you should not generalize one person's bad home training? So I did not generalize his home training, bad home training. I was like, I'm going to deal with this guy. And then if there's another one, I will deal with them individually. And so the first thing I had to do was make sure that my work was so good. Do you understand like what it means to make sure your work is so good? It's not delivering at par, it's delivering at extra excellent. And when I realized that I was delivering good, I noticed this because how did I know this? People started coming to me, Uyoyo, please, we have a problem, debug it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't think I want to help you. I'm busy. if you want me to help you, let me see a chocolate on my table tomorrow. And I laugh about it, but next day I come like there are like 10 chocolates on my table. Please, we need Uyoyo to help us. So I started realizing, okay, I have leverage now. My work is excellent. I'm showing up in my best self. I have to start dealing with this racist thing, right? And so the next day he came, do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want a cup of coffee? And I said, hey, let's call him John. Hey, John, very loudly. Hey, John, you forgot my coffee, my cup. Come get it. You always do this. Oh, I'm so sure you forgot. Come get the coffee. He looked at me so red, and I was smiling at him. And everybody in the organization, it was an open pool, looking at him to see his reaction. But he could not do that, right? And I'll tell you the reason why. He came, he took my glass cup, and I said, thank you, John. You're such a great person. And I kept talking. And he'll bring the coffee. He'll bring the coffee to my desk. And again, he will come back maybe like 2 hours later. Hey guys, I'm gonna get a coffee. Who wants one? And he will come and he will pretend like he forgot my cup. I'm like, John, you forgot again? Come over, come get my cup. And he will get the cup and he realized, oh, you didn't drink the coffee. I was like, oops, I forgot. Help me get the coffee again. And you see, he could not. Two things happened there. And I will tell you why. It seems like a funny story, but it's not really. Number one, because I was delivering excellence, he had no leverage on me. He had no leverage on me. And number two, one thing you must have seen is that I learned how to communicate their bullshit back to them in the language of the organization. That's why you see the skills I gained from KPMG, understanding the psychology of those you work with, is very important. Because when you're communicating grievances, you need to communicate it in a language that the organization will understand. You can't go there shouting, they did not collect my coffee. But you can't do that. If you go to France and they speak French, you learn French to communicate with them, right? If you go to England to speak, you learn English to communicate with them. So when you're not happy about something, you communicate in the language of the organization. What I see a lot of people is just going screaming and shouting, and then they don't understand this is. And so I learned how to communicate in him in a way that he understood in his language that he was messing up. It was laughing. Oh, who wants some coffee? And I was like, come get my cup. And it was like, so no one could point out that she was aggressive because it was exactly the language of the organization. You really need to study the organization you're working with, the psychology of the people you're working with, so that when you are dealing and when you've come to a place of mastery and you want to start dealing with issues of grievances, racism, ethics, and all, you're communicating so clearly that you're not misunderstood as an angry Black person or an angry African person. It's so clear that even if they print it out and they paste it on the wall, everybody be like, wow, she's right, she's right. Do you understand? And this is what they call emotional intelligence. I just realized, I didn't just realize the word. And you see the nexuses of things I was learning. And soon after in that organization, when they realized that I didn't care if they didn't invite me for anything, you could not walk over me because my identity was so strong. I would deliver excellent and I would smile back home. They started begging me to come for events. Hey, yo, we have this event. And I'm like, let me check my calendar. I'll let you know if I want to be there. But right, we Africans, we don't really. I was proud of who I was. I don't really understand a lot of things, but yeah, let me check my calendar and I'll let you know. I could only make those negotiating factor because I was excellent, because I knew how to speak the organization language, and I was not seeking acceptance because I understood work was work. And then I knew how to communicate my values. Now, so that was the second stage of my career, and I quickly left the organization. They wanted to sponsor me, long and short. They really loved me, and they wanted to sponsor me, and they wanted to keep me, and they were so happy to have me. But I moved to PwC London, right, another organization. This was a bigger organization. I mean, PwC London was like, it was huge. That's what I can say. It was huge. There were more than 1,000 people working. What's 1,000? About 2,000 people working in that building. And it was right in the middle of London. So I was working in a different environment. Again, everybody exceptionally skilled. Exceptionally skilled. Like these were people that named the best schools. And so I was really thankful that I had already developed an attitude of excellence, an identity that was not dependent on people to tell me who I was. It was not so strong at that point. I was still speaking it out to myself. Many days I doubted myself. Many days I came to work shaky, but I showed up, right? Many things I volunteered to do, I did not even know what it was. But I had this mindset that, see, the difference between me and you is knowledge. And once I resolve the knowledge gap, there's nothing. And while I'm resolving the knowledge gap, I'm not going to duck my head in shame. I'm going to keep resounding my identity. You see, I'm sorry, my laptop is about to die. Okay, great. And I'm going to keep resounding my identity. Even if you don't see it, it's on you. It will come out eventually, but it might take time in certain scenarios. And so in PwC London, it was pretty much similar. You can see I was still developing a narrative, right? I was still developing a narrative myself. Excellence, showing up, understanding organizational culture, understanding how people interacted with each other, and being able to communicate my values. Now, values are two ways. Now, values are your technical ability or prowess you bring to an organization, such that I pay attention to details. I deliver things over and above. I don't come with questions, I come with solutions. I'm a team player. You know, see, I know how to communicate effectively. And these are technical values that are expected. Now, they are values as an individual. Because the next thing I start saying people, so the higher I go, and the more I interacted with people, I started saying that people like me, you start losing what I call, should I call it your social values? What makes Uyoyo Uyoyo? What makes Kende Kende? What makes Vanessa Vanessa? Because you've been climbing that ladder to master, to become excellent, to understand, but you're not doing that to blend in. You should always keep that in mind because when you go higher, these are the things that you need to correct. So when I got to PwC, right, London, I was already all these things. But one thing I had not started doing was going back to repair cultures that were wrong. Now I was almost in a position where I could start correcting wrong mentalities about Africans, which I had faced in my previous organization. Rather than smiling and saying, yes, 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 I understood language. I understood how to correct people. I understood how to talk to people in an open and a diverse culture. And I already brought excellence, so there was no question on who I am. And then I started building something, which is building an identity and accepting who I was. So when people will say things like, hey, blah, 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 I heard this about Nigeria. And I'll be like, wow, what have my people done again? And they'll all laugh. I'll be like, we're 200 million people, and what do you expect? You expect the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, if you had a sample set of 200 million, you would see that. So you see, logically explaining my values, not distancing myself from my identity. And it started helping them to correct because my own theory was that if another person that came into that role that looked like me and had my skin color, and maybe they not know these things that I know, they shouldn't be treated that way from the first go. So I should be able to correct mindset so that that person could have a softer landing. And this is what I see in a lot of organizations. When you look at people there, they've lost their value. You don't even know who to tell. You don't know the difference between them and the other person. So when you look at executive management, I did a presentation recently. Everybody looks alike and everybody talks alike. Even the whites, the black people, everyone is talking alike. No one is bringing their unique identity any longer. It's like we blend in or we go home. And that's because they have not developed these skills of understanding people, understanding your technical values, and understanding your social values. If you don't drink, and you suddenly now start rolling with the big boys, and they're saying, let's go for a drink in the afternoon. You don't drink. You don't, instead of being ashamed of your value, you know who you are. You know that you've already been, you will not carry a beer and say, okay, I'll drink so that they can promote me. No, you can't be an executive if you don't know how to bring a divergent opinion. Hey guys, I don't drink because I have religious background and religious values that don't let me drink. But don't worry, If you guys are not going to drink, I could follow you to go and drink, but one day I promise you, you guys have to follow me to one of my charity events. And everybody laughs about it. But you see, you're trading values. You and you're speaking their language. Don't lose yourself. I mean, I've seen a lot of LinkedIn messages saying you become this, you change your shirt, you share, and you have to fight against it. So I'll come to my new organization, which has been really interesting. I'll tell you how. So I moved into the AFDB, having done some time in the UK. They brought me back, and when I reached a position in the UK, I got tired. In fact, my organization really loved me. And I tell stories. You guys pick your answers from it. My organization really loved me and they wanted to keep me. In fact, they had given me a visa to go to the US office to develop something. But my spirit felt like it was time to go back to Africa and develop the tech ecosystem in Africa. In fact, I wrote that in my book, in a book 2013. I said, the more I work in this environment, the more I feel that I'm not contributing anything. I feel like even though I'm getting excellence, my contribution to this economy is marginal. Like I'm a drop, not even a drop in the ocean. If there's anything smaller than a drop in the ocean, I probably felt like that. And I wrote in my diary that I would love to go back to Africa to develop the ecosystem. And again, I put it in the word of faith, like just putting faith out there. Can you see similar patterns to what I told you when I was going to a master's? Can you see similar patterns to when I told you I was in PwC? At every point in your life, if you're a human being, you start feeling it when you're meant to transition to something else. For some people, it's complaining about their job. Oh, I don't like this job again. I'm tired. But if you're a human being and you're sensitive to yourself and timing, you would almost feel it when you're meant to transition to something else. You might not know it. Right. And I started feeling that way in PwC, but I couldn't tell any normal human being back home in Nigeria. I couldn't even tell my parents that I wanted to leave the UK and I wanted to come back to Africa so that they will not look for the village people that were doing their child right to come back home, right? If you understand. And so there's in Nigeria, they believe that for you to want to leave that place of comfort and come back home, then it must be a serious mental issue or something more. All right. And I couldn't tell my dad this or anyone in my family, but I started feeling a gap, a very strong desire to come back to Africa. December of that same year, I got a call from the FDB that, oh, I got accepted into a program that I had applied 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I got accepted. And I was like, is this a scam? All right, what do you even mean? I can't remember applying for this. But I got that email. I had applied 2 years ago. Again, I want to really caution you, like the words of your mouth are powerful and the type of attitudes you bring towards life is actually more importantly powerful. The words you speak to yourself and the words you draw around yourself and even the standards you set around yourself, you need to protect your identity so badly. It's more so important in this time where I don't know how the economies of your countries are, but many economies, inflation is hitting so hard, poverty levels are dry. It's very important. It's very easy to go into complaining and sulking and self-pity, right? You need to develop your identity. You need to understand that as a human being, even though you are from a particular country, you're not necessarily limited in terms of value to that country. You are actually a global citizen and you could actually give value to a whole large spectrum of countries. But if you have that identity for yourself, when you work, you will realize that when I'm working, I'm not working for this boss. I am a brand. My work is my brand. And therefore, my brand has to be good. I'm not working to please somebody. That's the minutest form of working. That's so archaic. So that you're working so that somebody can smile at you and say, well done, I'm coming for my children's party or come and eat rice in my house or something like that. That's the most primitive type of KPIs you could set for yourself as a human being that can change the world. I mean, we're all using electricity and internet. We know where it came from. Or you don't know. So the value you think has to precede you. You have to see yourself as a brand. I did not know that all these years what I was doing was developing a brand about myself. So I got into African Development Bank and voila, I was tasked with it was a different ballgame entirely, I will tell you. I got into my dream job where I had the opportunity to change Africa and to finance big projects that would change technology. But when I stepped into AFDB, they didn't want to do any technology job. They wanted to build roads, they wanted to do water. Nobody understood what I was talking about, that we should help people with coding skills, or we should invest in young people. And then IT was not even as a high earning as this, right? And so all the economists thought I was crazy. They were like, okay, so explain it to us in an economic term, macroeconomic principle. What is the impact on job? What is the additionality? This technology that they will go and be back office. What is the value add? And I didn't know how to speak their language. Now, it was very hard. This was a tech innovative person, management consultant entering into a development economist role. Again, these principles I shared with you, I brought it into play. I needed to understand the language of this organization. I needed to understand it so well that when I bring a proposal that they should invest in tech, no one will see a hole in it. I needed not just to understand it, I needed to know how to speak it. And then I needed the credibility and the relevant degrees so that when I come to that table, I'm unquestionable. It took me 1 year to understand how these people talk, how they think, how leadership operates, how the whole organization operates. You'll see that I told you that in KPMG, I did that, in PwC, I did that, in that other organization, I did that. You need to understand the psychology of the place you work in so that you can communicate with them and you can communicate effectively. Now, after 1 year, I studied all the documents. See, everything economists, as they're talking in meetings, I'm writing down the way they talk about poverty development, economic sustainability. I didn't know any of this. And after 1 year of studying, it was tearful because I had just come from a place where I was celebrated. I built this brand. They loved me, PwC, everyone was there. And I was starting again in this organization because I wanted them to see that technology was going to be the next thing, and Africa, they need to start investing development financing in that. And nobody understood what I meant. So as time will have it and as well have it, I understood how they started talking. And then I wrote my first proposal. It was on a program called Coding for Employment. I mean, I was so indebted in that mindset of how this organization thinks that sometimes when I sleep, I see emails and I see how to word these emails to high-ranking organizations in such a way that immediately I speak about it. They understand the activities, they understand the output, they understand the outcome. They can almost touch how this financing and how this project will impact people. That's because I took 1 year, 1 year plus to learn how they speak. And when I opened my mouth to start speaking after 1 year, first thing first, I wrote to the Rockefeller Foundation and I said, we need $2 million because my organization was not going to fund me. But I had understood the psychology of working in development financing, that the name alone you carried was as good as cash. So I wrote to the Rockefeller Foundation and I said, you see, we're about to embark on something that is pivotal and will change lives. The African Development Bank wants to build this program, blah, blah, blah. My colleagues, my managers, they thought I was crazy. In fact, I would have people competing me. Then I wrote to Google. I wrote to Google. I wrote to Facebook. I wrote because see, I was confident. See. So you see where skills are coming into, right? I didn't see myself as what they saw me. In fact, I had somebody come to me and say, "Oh, you're square peg in a round hole." Because after learning for 1 year, it looked like I had nothing to do. They were like, "This coding project that you're even taking, are you sure you will not go and join IT back office or something?" No one knew what was cooking. And I smiled and I continued. I said, if my organization doesn't support me, I'm going to build so much external pressure that they are going to come back to me. And because I'm in this organization, I'm eligible to use the name of the organization within approved processes to gain financing for a project that will be of the greater good of Africa. And so it happened like that. I wrote to Google's, I wrote to Facebook, I wrote to Rockefeller Foundation. If you see these emails, if nobody told you that, if somebody told you that it was from the president, I didn't impersonate anybody. If someone told you that the email was from a president of the organization, you will believe. Why? Because I understood the thinking of that organization. I understood the thinking of that field. Now, what happened? Fast forward, I went on maternity leave. And as I was stepping out on maternity leave, something happened. All of them started writing back. Rockefeller wrote back and said, Great. The African Development Bank wasn't it. We'll give you $2 million to pilot this program. We think it's a great initiative. Google wrote back, we'll do this. Microsoft said, Google is doing this. We're going to give you 10 million. And my organization, I was at home one day rubbing my stomach, and my director started calling me, Uyoyo, what have you done? How did you get this? Oh my God, everybody wants to give this. We can't handle the workload. They keep coming, they keep writing, what is this? Before you knew it, that's how the first technology project on training people started. It was funded by externals. It was so good that our president would write to my office, and you guys know the president of the bank, and he will say, please, I need a line. I'm going to a meeting and I need to say what we are doing on coding for employment. And everybody started talking about it. Now let me tell you why they could talk about it. So I did this. And so they started calling me, Uyoyo what? Uyoyo this, Uyoyo how? And this organization started calling me, but I developed excellence. When I got into that team and I understood the way they write, I realized that I'm a brand. So if I'm building a program, I need to build a brochure. Nobody was asking me for this. I built a brochure. I built a 10 to 5 year strategy. I built a thinking pattern. So when they started calling me, I was laughing. They said, well, how did you come up with $2 million? I said, we projected from X, Y, Z. How did you do this? This was the brochure we sent to them. How did you? We have the processing. They didn't know that I spent 2 years writing, 2 years understanding how programs are built, 2 years making sure that if somebody was to poke into this, they will see that thinking had gone into it. It was so bad that they had to take one of my jobs. They had to employ a full-time unit to start implementing it because the thinking, the processing, the pattern. But you see, I didn't just wake up and be like this. I started it from early days. I started thinking of myself as a brand early enough. So even when nobody was watching or nobody expected anything good from me, my brand in me would not let me go below that standard. So if I was doing a program, I had to do it the right way, not because somebody will give me excellent or somebody will give me good or something like that. It's because I was building a brand. So that I was like, if somebody picks up this, and I started telling myself, if somebody should pick up my work, right? And so I started moving beyond, okay, I'm a brand. I needed to be seen as an institution. I wanted it in such a way that if somebody should pick up my work and they read it, even though they know it's Uyoyo that wrote it, they should not, they should be able to, they should almost not even be able to say it's me that wrote it. They should be able to say, this is impossible for one person to think about. Maybe this was written by a whole organization because the quality and the depth of thinking is so good that it cannot be one person that wrote it. That was the next standard I set for myself when I got into African Development Bank. I needed to start seeing my work as an institution. I had moved from seeing myself as a brand, which was giving excellence to an institution. So that when I say something, it's not because Uyoyo said it, maybe because of Uyoyo. It's because there's so much logic and thinking in it that before you see the person, you see the knowledge behind it and you take it on. So guys, what am I telling you? Right? If you don't start early enough, if you don't start building your personal values, executive presence doesn't come like that. People ask me every day, how do you get speaking events? Why are people always calling you to speak? Honestly, I don't even know how people are calling me to speak, but I think I know it now because it's a build-up of many things. Somebody said, tell me the 10 steps to make you go on panel and how to be a panelist and I said, see, I don't wake up in the morning thinking about I want to be on a panel. I live my life giving value so much that the value is the value that I give and the value that I bring out. That's what people notice and they call me for this. I have too many panel events that I cannot handle, but I don't live to speak on the outside. I live to give institutional quality work. And so there are certain times in my life in the year I'm saying I'm done. I'm not accepting any event because I need to focus on what makes me me. Do you see? I'm able to do this because I haven't sold my identity. I understand my technical value and I understand my social value and I understand my boundaries. So you really need to protect these identities. Now, more recently, let me tell you what happened, right? So in the bank, that program became a success. It was the best thing after sliced bread. The bank in fact, we started funding ICT projects in millions of dollars. And one of the largest projects I did was $618 million for a country you would know. That's how it was the first time the African Development Bank was doing that, and it was all ICT, right? And so I came to a point in my life where, oh, it's already time. This is the end, going to be the end. Again, I started feeling that feeling that came knocking on my door in PwC. I started feeling this feeling of dissatisfaction, and I felt that my work was repetitive. And because I had understood my processes, see, in this day and age, you need to understand yourself. You need to understand your cycles. There's a lot of distraction out there on social media, on X, and everything. But you need to understand patterns in your life because life is about patterns, right? And so I came again and I recognized that pattern. I recognized that when I start feeling uncomfortable for something, there is a next step, and I'm meant to be in the next stage. But I didn't know this next stage. And so that's when I went into, again, I told you, life is a life about faith. And I started, it was during the lockdown. Everybody was saying, hey, we're destroyed, or they're firing everybody, or our job is going to be ruined. Or and my friend shared with me, was it a podcast or a webinar? And the webinar, the person teaching was saying this time is a very critical time. In this COVID period, people will be using their mouths to say very, very hurtful things about their destiny, but you can also use this period as a pivotal point to break in your career and your life. And so I started speaking things into my life and I wrote it down. I said, this year was the best year of my life. I am moving to the next level of my life. I am going to be the best. I am going to build my social economic skills. And I wrote it and I wrote down literal things that I can't share right now, but I wrote it. COVID-19 was the best year of my life. I was sitting at home and someone called me and said, Uyoyo, I think there's a role for you that you need to move to. And I said, oh, yeah, really? And I applied for the role and I got it. It was a very big position, right? That's what brought me to really be the executive representative. And that same year, because I was feeling discomfort, I started feeling the need that I needed to build on my technical skills. All this while I was a computer scientist, BSc, MSc, and I'd learned on the job just by psychology of organization. But I felt like when I went to meetings, I was sitting with doctors in economics and Oxford graduates in public policy. I couldn't just sit down with my computer science degree. So I said to myself that I wanted to go to the best school in the world in economics and social sciences because I'd never done it in my life. I'd only learned. And COVID-19, I applied to schools. I said because I was so busy, I didn't have time to build a quality application. So I applied to very University of Cape Town, I applied to some schools and I applied to the London School of Economics and Political Science. I even applied to so many African schools. All the schools rejected me because I didn't have time to build my application because I was working so hard. But guess who accepted me? The London School of Economics and Political Science. And they not only accepted me, they accepted me as the first time they were accepting an international student to do a part-time master's in LSE. So I could still work full-time and I was doing a part-time master's. And so you see what I'm saying about always look for how to build your skills. Long and short, I got my master's in LSE. My course was the number 3 best in the world. So I was able to match my theoretical knowledge I gained from the organization with my practical knowledge from AFDB by studying policies with actual theoretical knowledge on economics, macroeconomics, public policy building. And I think that made me a different type of human being in AFDB. I realized that when I went for meetings, my arguments were not just based on things that I had read from articles, but they were both sides of the table. I would sit in meetings with World Bank, I would sit in meetings with IMF, and when they come in a direction, I would say, in 1947, this was not the way because there was what structure, there was the Bretton Woods Conference. I knew things more. I was not just skilled in my job, but I was technically skilled. And see, guys, this is why I told you, life is a life of lifelong learning. Wherever you want to be, the difference between you and anybody else in that field is knowledge. Knowledge, how you speak about yourself, how you position yourself, your faith that will open the doors, and excellent work about your brand. I think I have to stop here. I'm holding a webinar very soon. I think I put it on my LinkedIn page. I will repost it. Anyone that's very interested in the intersection between faith and hard work for success, please join it. I'll stop here and I'll open for questions. But what I want to tell you 3 things. Your identity. Please do not trade your identity. In fact, I can be on this call and I can call you, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. It's when you accept that you're stupid that you become stupid. Second thing is, if nobody sees it, Resound it to yourself. The next thing is build excellence. Start somewhere. Always question your work. Be the person that question, can I do this better? Your value is not so valid so that they will see you. You're adding value because you are going to be an institution one day. Your work should be so good that if they print it out, they'll be like, wow, all the people that wrote this work they are so good. And when they see that it's you, they're like, what? You have to work. See, we don't have another life. Secondly, when you get to a position where you have mastery, you can start correcting things and you understand the language. Start correcting those things that were set against you. For instance, I work in an organization where there are predominantly a lot of Caucasian people right now, even though it's African Development Bank. But I've come to a level of executive leadership that when I get in and I see my Caucasian colleagues, I was like, hey, have you ever worked with an African? No. Okay, the first thing first, my hair would always change, keep up with the face, and I laugh and they all laugh. But it's very important that I set that standard. I said, in Africans, like our hair, like our clothes, we always change it. So keep up with the face, right? Guys, keep up with the face. And they laugh about it. But then the next time they go and work with an African lady, they won't be looking at them and say, how's your hair changing or what? They understand. These are little things I started correcting. Hey, in Africa, we do this culture. And I started explaining because we're exchanging values. I didn't lose my identity. I'm not going to straighten my hair just to blend in. I have given my value and I'm going to trade in something. Some things are negotiable. And I'm not going to lose myself in the process of becoming an executive leader. So questions? Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm 7 minutes over time. I see. How is this going to work, Sahad? I give it back to you to let me know how we should do the question answering.
Okay, someone is raising their hand. Candy, can you please say your question?
Yeah, hi, Candy. So, thank you, to our guest speaker. It was very good and very inspiring. So, I have just one question about work-life balance. And so, for context, I'm in the US. I'm based in Oregon, and I work for a Wall Street bank. I'm a vice president of technology. But I'm struggling with work-life balance. It's just me at home and my husband, and I have a 10-month-old and a 5-year-old son. So at work, even on my plan for my manager this year is work-life balance. That, I work too much. I need to balance fear of missing out and my family. That if I'm sleeping only 3 hours a day, what time do I use to spend with my children and my husband? So it's on my work plan for my management this year that even though I'm delivering excellently well, I'm having great ideas, but they are afraid that people will copy me and not face their family and be chasing career and delivering for the career. But my job can be replaced, but they can't replace me as a mom. My children only have one mom. My husband only has one wife. So that can be replaced. So that needs to be focused on. So my question back is work-life balance. How do you balance work and family and other personal priorities? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I should answer Kende because this is something so close to my heart. I also have, and I know Kende. Kende, how are you doing? It's great to connect with you. I'm so happy that you're here. It was really great to see you. We went to university together. So Kende, I totally understand what you mean by work-life balance, and this is where you have to start negotiating. So when I became excellent in my role, I started negotiating. First thing, I don't work on weekends. And that one, you have to set your boundaries and you need to learn to negotiate. So let me explain what I mean to you. When somebody gives me a task, right? Hey, we have to do this, it's great. I'll be like, don't worry, I'll get it to you by Monday evening. I don't need to tell you because of this, I'm a person of excellence and I just need a bit more time. Give me till Monday evening because I don't want to call it that. I don't want to sacrifice time over excellence. You see, so you need to start bringing this chip in your conversation. Don't wait for them to tell you, Kenny. So it's something like you have a great idea to work on and your idea is great. Please don't tell them because you want to deliver, you can deliver 2 days. No, give yourself 1 day. Do you understand? Negotiate your time. And you need to start setting boundaries. I don't work weekends and nobody will die if I don't resume on Monday morning to handle that matter. In fact, I think this is the first webinar. I told my husband I was doing a webinar today. He said, today is Saturday. I was like, I didn't even look at the dates actually. That's why I accepted. But I don't open my computer weekends for all. The rain, the moon could rain, but I will tell you between Saturday and Sunday, what I missed was not that big because when I come in with a fresher mind, we settle it. We settle it. And it's very important. Sleep. When they say, let's come for this meeting, because you're a person of excellence, you'll be like, start reminding them, the last time I delivered this work in 3 days, so you understand that at the bare minimum, I give value. So why not we say, let's bring this in 2 days, right? Nothing will happen, guys. We always do the best. Like, learn that language and change it, start pushing things forward. Don't say yes to everything, even if you can do it. Don't accept any task. So what I do is that when I look at tasks, right now, I don't accept some tasks. I don't accept some jobs. I don't accept some roles. I don't accept some speaking events. I don't accept some things because, I look at it as what value does it bring? Can somebody else do it? If they do it and get the accolades for that, would it make me do we have to? So you need to think about quality versus quantity. What quality? What is the end goal at the end of the day? See, as parents and as individuals here, you need to balance things up. So for us, for instance, I travel a lot. In my job, we're always in the air. But when I land back from those trips, I tell my boss I'm taking 2 days off because I need to mentally prepare. I am fatigued from seeing people. And if I don't prepare, I will not be able to give you this excellence that you're looking at. You're not going to get it. I put up my laptop, me and my children will go and play with sand for 2 days. In fact, they won't go to school those 2 days. We're all going to play. We will play. The last one, I just carried them and we took them to nature. And we played and we for 2 days I did nothing. And when I came back into the work, nobody died. The work that was there still was there. And I was fresher enough. I had the mom guilt was taken away from me. And I was able to give my best. Do you see? So you need to negotiate. So if you find yourself that this week I've been sleeping three hours, okay, you then say, after a week, I've done this for 2 weeks, we have delivered. Thank you so much. But I think that I'm going to be working half day tomorrow, except something is extremely important because my children want to eat. You don't owe them that. What you are doing is reminding them, I have delivered this. I need to take some time for resting and for my personal well-being. But to recoup and I'll join the office back so that I can come back with my freshest self back to work. And you start little by little, Kende. So negotiate your weekends. Unfortunately, I won't be able to work weekend because I'm now trying to set boundaries in my life for effective work-life balance. You will find out that everybody will be fine. When you do weekends, then you start working, negotiating, recovering your time. If you find out in a short stretch, you've been sleeping at work, you've been sleeping 2 hours, 3 hours, but every time you do that, recoup your time. Take a unpaid half day off or take a paid half. Do you understand? You need to set these boundaries for yourself. For instance, I know that from September to December, I'll be traveling. I'll be traveling so terribly. I've told them in August, I'm taking the whole of August off. And nobody should contact me in August because I need to spend that time with my family doing absolutely nothing. So that by the time, in fact, the family will even be tired of me. They'll be like, when are you traveling? But you see, you need to negotiate, communicate your time. Nobody looks out for you but yourself. Like you said, your family will not be replaceable, but work would always be. And if you don't learn to set boundaries for yourself, everybody's things will be urgent and important but yours. I hope this helps. Next person, I think
Yeah.
Blessing. Yes. And I'm happy to expand on that. Blessing, please go ahead.
Okay, good evening. I don't know if I'm audible. Good evening, Uyoyo.
Yes, you are. You are. I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay. Oh, okay. I want to say thank you for the amazing talk tonight. This evening rather. I am really glad to have joined this session today. I just want to ask, how do you stay focused, especially for someone like me who is a youth? How do you advise me to stay focused? How do you advise me to stay consistent in building these values, in building myself up, that I get to that point where I speak excellence. All I do is excellent. I have my values. I have my I can be able to set boundaries in any organization I find myself working. How do I build myself as a youth from your experience that you shared when you initially started working?
I will answer that question. Thank you so much, Blessing, for the answer for that question. And thank you for joining. How do I stay excellent? So let me tell you the thing about it. I think will come upon you and you just get into the computer and start seeing God knows what. And so I have a quadrant, like it's a quadrant set box of highly important, highly urgent but not important, not important, not urgent, and you get the last quadrant, right? So I put my work in those boxes and I put numbers. So I then prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in a day, before I even start work, I write every single thing that I think I want to do. Maybe I wanted to do a slide and it was not fine enough. I write it down and I put it sounds really archaic, right? But when you put your tasks down and you set yourself accountable to something, it's those little steps that help you, right, to build it, right? So I think I have one of them. I think I'll show you one. I picked up an old notebook from, this one is not the quadrant, but you can see it. Oh, is it clear? No, no, it's not clear. No, no. It's not clear, but I think my background is blurring it out. So, but usually I have a quadrant and I write simple things like, okay, I want to build the best email and send, or I want to build the best strategy for my organization. So today I start with one chapter. I don't even think about any other thing. My goal is I will finish this chapter, and this chapter must be the best chapter in the world. I mean, there are 20 other chapters. And so I come into work, focus on that chapter, I give it my extremely best. The next day, my to-do list might be recheck that chapter to see if it's good enough compared to your peer organization. And then I keep building on this. But you know what? The simple truth about life is that life is just a series of done to-do lists. Done, 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 done. And then inconsistency is just a series of to-do lists left undone. That's as simple as it is. And then you need to be realistic. You won't come to work on Monday and set yourself 200 things to do. Break it down. So what do you need to do? Break your tasks down. You need to build an app that does something, or you need to just write it down. And then when you prioritize your different, which is the most important, which is the least important, and pick the first one. I mean, you might not feel motivated. Just try. Finish the first one and cancel it out. You see that the psychology of just finishing one, when you go to the second one and you go to the third one, what will happen now is that you wouldn't forget things easily. You will also be able to negotiate. So when somebody comes to me and say, you've not done this, I say, don't worry, you're number 5 on my list. I'm iterating to this. When I'm done with it, I'll come to you. So you're able to even preempt your workload. I tell my colleagues and we all laugh. I have a very big electronic board in my office. I write everything from as little as I'm going to read bedtime story to my kids by 9 is on that board. Because everything I realize is a big to-do list. If I'm able to read to my son 1 night and 2 nights and I canceled out on my week, that makes me, if I achieve that in 1 week, that means I read for them, actually read storybooks to them in a whole week. But take each day as it comes. Like, don't be hard on yourself. Write the to-do list, write your top 10 things to do and do it. Just do it. Anyone that you've not done, the next day before you start a new one, write, do it. And honestly, that's what I call excellence. Excellence is literally a book of done to-do lists. It's as simple as that. And one thing I do when I work, because you know, kind of said something about negotiating time. I don't have a lot of time. I'm a mom of two as well. I do a lot of things. When I'm at work, I'm at work. My phone is on silence. I don't need to catch up to social media and Twitter and all because I don't want to work at night. In fact, sometimes I eat lunch on my deck because I just want to get work done. You see, the mindset you come with work is very important. I know work is for work. When I go to work, I go to work. I literally go, I laugh with people, I smile, but when I go to work, my mindset is I am going to work so that as I'm stepping out of here, no one's calling me back and saying, oh, yo, you didn't do this, you doing this. When I'm done for that day, I'm done. I'm not bringing work home. So you see, I already wake up with such seriousness to go to work and all. But be gentle on yourself. So I repeat, set a to-do list. Make it easy. I'll build my PowerPoint slide, build slide 1, build slide 2. Tomorrow, check if the slide is good enough. Check if the slide is good enough. Third, do research to make sure the numbers on those slides add up with statistics and I don't cook up anything. Fourth, send the slides to manager 1. To-do list today. If he did not respond, write him an email. You see? And that's how you've gotten yourself from just doing a slide to do, but write it down. There's something they say in my religion that if you write a vision and you make it plain, when you read it, you can run with it, right? It's something you don't write, you can never know what you're meant to. Your mind will be jumbled up. So right now in my level, I deal with so many countries, so many things. And when I see myself in panic, oh my God, there's so many things to do. I realize that it's the reason why I'm fidgeting is because I have not written these things down in a sequential order. And I have not prioritized it in the ones that are important, the ones that are not. So everything is now clashing in my head. Immediately, I write it down and put the importance high priority, not important, but priority, but do you understand? Not important and not important, not priority. And I number them so that I finish number 1. I don't even touch anything. As I'm doing number 1, I must finish number 1 before I go to number 2, before I go to number 3. Like it takes a special level of discomfort, and I would negotiate with you that see, I'm working on number 1. I assure you, if you leave me alone, I will get to you. If I don't get to you today, I'll get to you today. Tomorrow, I tell my colleagues, if it's written on my board, you're getting it done. Because I gloat in the self. There's the sense of self-reward I give to myself that I finished all my to-do lists. There's that pride in yourself that, this week I finished everything. Oh. Yeah, and that's excellent. Okay. There are more hands up. Blessing, is that in your hand or old hand? I don't know.
Thank you so much for that. I'm so grateful. It's the previous raise, so I'll drop it now. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any other questions. So thank you so much, guys, for having me.
Thank you so much, Uyoyo. This meetup cannot be more perfect. I already have prepared 2 questions for you. I wanted to ask you to share your background and what led you to your control, and to share the key milestone and decision that significantly impacted to your career, but you already covered that. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation and for sharing your incredible career story with us. I believe that all what you said during this meetup should be taught at a school. So thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. Have a wonderful evening, and see you all at our next meetup.
Let me
Thank
just
you.
say one thing, right? I know people are struggling and people want to be in many different places. Wherever you are right now, just be the best. Just if you're a secretary, be the best secretary and get the best skills. So one thing you would have seen from my story is that when I was in KPMG, I got the best skills for KPMG. When I was in PwC, I got the best skills for PwC. I found myself in AFDB. I went to London School of Economics and I got the best skills for there because you don't know what your role will be in the next few years. Don't worry about that. Just be the best in wherever you want to be. I've done like 3 careers right now, it's totally different, but those values will pursue you. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day. And don't forget faith. You have to have faith in God, really. It's very important because life is interesting. Very interesting place. Very interesting place. Like plans might not go as possible. Loved ones might die in the process or not die. People might disappoint you, but that faith will give you something to keep waking up every day. All right. Thank you. Bye bye. And have a nice
Thank
one.
you.
Can I drop off now?
You too, yes, you can. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice weekend.